2 years ago, on the western side of Lake Michigan, the pumping was so severe, this groundwater pumping, that instead of accessing groundwater that was feeding the lake, they actually reversed the flow of water in Lake Michigan for the very first time in history, and they were sucking Lake Michigan water out. Well, of course the lakes are declining. Bigger lakes than the Great Lakes have been almost destroyed in our world, or destroyed from over pumping. There's a man named Stephen Schumann. He's a Nobel laureate and the director of the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. He was asked about the prospects for a water crisis in this country. He said, and I quote, "There is a 2/3 chance there will be a disaster in the next decade or so, and that's my best scenario." Yet election after election, we hear nothing about it, including the last election. Nothing about it. No discussion of the water crisis in this country. Why not? Well, I think it's that myth of abundance that we just, either we think that it can happen here, or as long as there's water coming out of the tap, we let somebody else worry about it, or we maybe think technology will fix it. And I promise you, there's no technology that's going to fix this, including desalination, which is very expensive, energy intensive, and puts a polluting chemical brine back out into the ocean. Basically, this is the situation. We collectively have around the world seen water as indestructible. We can do whatever we want with it. We can take it where we want. We can grow what we want with it. We can build what we want with it. We can pollute it, dump it in the ocean. It will always be there. And we have used water as an economic tool for our profit, and we have used it as a source of pleasure for us. And we have not thought and understood this most important thing. It is the essential element in a living ecosystem. And you take that water out of the living ecosystem, and it won't support anything, including us. So what have we done in North America? Well, we've allowed unfettered development, golf courses, swimming pools, mega houses in the desert. Do you know, as we speak tonight, they're building the biggest water theme park in the world in the desert in Arizona. They actually had a vote on this. They had a referendum, and even though they knew the consequences environmentally, they decided to go for it. And it's going to be so big that they're going to have waves that you can surf and whitewater rafting. That's how much water they're going to pump into this desert thing. We also dump our toxins and sewage in our water systems. More than half the country's industrial and municipal wastewater facilities exceed the limit of the Clean Water Act. We subsidize wasteful, chemical-driven, water-intensive industrial food production, and we use flood irrigation to grow inappropriate crops in the desert. Astonishing 75% of all irrigated land in the U.S. is in the 17 states where precipitation isn't sufficient to sustain crop production. And most of that is where we're shipping it out of the country. And by the way, this is called virtual water trade. Americans are stunned when I tell them that you guys ship 1/3 of your daily water use every day, not just out of watersheds, right out of the country. You don't have that water to be shipping out, and it's going to take a brave politician or politicians to start to challenge the power of this corporate industrial monopoly. We also are worried about nuclear reactors, which need huge amounts of water for cooling and destroying billions of gallons of water every year. Ditto for the computer chip industry, and ditto for this new shale pumping to get natural gas that is called shale fracturing or refracturing, where they pump water filled with chemicals horizontally into these shale beds to release natural gas. But they really destroy huge amounts of water. New York State is going to build up to 6,000 wells. Each and every one will destroy up to 8 million gallons of water, because it's this poison chemical water that's then left in these poison lagoons. As a result of this abuse, we're mining our groundwater faster than it can be replenished by nature, and we are not looking after our water sources in this country or around the world. And as I say, to perpetuate this myth, we call it drought, because there is the expectation with drought that there will be rain, but maybe there will not be. This is not cyclical drought. This is the end of the planet with enough water for everyone. And you're going to hear more and more and more and more about this issue over the next decade, I promise you. Now, what's the way forward? That's the bad news, and it is bad. My husband says, do people actually when you come to here. But here's the news. Here's the good news. We actually know what we need to do to take care of the world's water. We need to use every drop of water twice. We have to conserve. We have to keep it in watersheds. We have to stop polluting. We have to see polluters as criminals. Martin Luther King said, legislation may not change the heart, but it will restrain the hearts, which I think is quite a wonderful thing to say. We have to plan. We need 50-year planning, regional planning cycles. And a region has to say, and I mean by this a watershed or a bioregion, which may cross political lines, but we've got to think watershed. We've got to say to each other and ourselves, how much water do we have? We really have to map that groundwater. Just don't let everybody have whatever they want. We have to map it. And then you say, what are the needs, what are the demands from population, farming, industry, and so on, and can we meet it? And then you have to set a priority on it. And Vermont has got legislation that I helped write, and I was very excited about it, because they had no protection for their groundwater. And they had all these bottled water companies coming in and just pumping and taking it and shipping it out. And there's a real concern around lots of parts of the world, including New Hampshire. I worked with the Save Our Groundwater folks in Barrington to stop a big water taking there. We need this legislation. We need much better legislation in this state. But Vermont said, okay, we're going to make our groundwater a public trust, which means that nobody owns it. It means that it belongs to everyone. It belongs to the ecosystem, and it belongs to future generations. And we're going to set a priority. And that priority is access for all to water, not for swimming pools, but for themselves, right? Not saying no swimming pools. I'm just saying the right to water is not about excessive water. It's the water you need for daily life. And they're going to maintain water in watersheds, and they're going to give a priority to local food production. And we're going to have to, most of us around the world, start bringing in policies that promote and support globalization. The whole notion that if something can be grown or produced closer to home, that's what we're going to have to look at. You know, the average North American dinner plate travels 1,500 miles to get to us. It's crazy, you know, it's not good food either, so this is important for us to know. And then they said, we're going to have, this is Vermont, for big water takers, we're going to have permits, and you're going to pay for that water. And if you're polluting that water, or if you're taking too much of that water, you can turn the tap off. This is collective management of a resource that's shared. That's a different model than the Texas model, which basically says first come, first served. And I think it's very important for us to get our heads around, because this is part of this larger issue that we've been talking about. And we have to build our water policy on the premise that no region will use more of the water resource than it supplies. And this is important. There's a thing called your national water footprint, and that's all the water for your goods and services for your people. And the question is, how much of your water footprint do you supply at home, either in your region or your country, and how much do you import? People say to me all the time, well, where in the world are they doing a good job with water? And I say, well, Europe's doing a good job. There's a big but. I get to the but in a second. But the good job is that they've implemented watershed management. They're doing very exciting things in protecting water, in joint water management. The caveat, however, is that they are bringing in a lot of their water from the places that don't have water so that they can protect their own.